He was the unluckiest fool, wanting to buy a backpack his daughter liked, but a passing officer got it first. He chased after the officer with a handful of change, pleading for the backpack for his daughter. The officer, with a red face, slapped him to the ground. She never expected that this small backpack would bring her such disaster. The next day, the fool, Mimo, was mocked by a group of greedy children while herding sheep, including the officer's daughter. Seeing the backpack on the girl's back, the foolish Mimo was particularly excited, letting the mischievous girl play. She deliberately used the backpack to tease him, and soon ran to the edge of a cliff. Kind-hearted Mimo urged her to stop, but the girl ignored her and fell off the cliff, hitting her head. Naive Mimo jumped down to save her without hesitation. By the time he brought her up, he had stopped breathing. Mimo was unaware of death. He held the girl, shaking like a child. "Where's the baby? I have such a beautiful baby." The girl's father, upon hearing the news, rushed over with a group of soldiers. He held his daughter's body, wailing. Seeing Mimo being controlled by the soldiers, he immediately assumed he was the murderer, pulled out a gun, and fired without hesitation. Fortunately, he was pushed aside by his subordinates in time, saving Mimo's life, but the commander wouldn't let it go. Mimo was detained, tortured, and beaten, crying and shouting to go home, fearing his grandmother's anger for being late. But no one listened to him, and they forced him to press his fingerprint on a confession. The commander got what he wanted, intending for Mimo to be buried with the girl. Yet, even so, he wouldn't let it go. He quietly entered the interrogation room and locked the door, while the grandmother and daughter had been waiting outside all night. He pleaded with the soldiers to see his grandson, but they refused. Soon, Mimo was taken in a prison van to trial. Oa cried and ran to the door, blocking the van with her small body as her father was taken away. She pounded on the van, urging them to free her father. Mimo, fearing for his daughter, frantically searched for a hiding spot. Oa chased the van as it drove away. Suddenly, Mimo remembered something only his daughter would understand. Oa often went up the mountain with her father, and the ruins at the top were called the One-Eyed Theater by Mimo. The daughter quickly understood and ran alone to the mountain top. To her surprise, a man was there. After talking, she discovered he had seen what happened yesterday. Oa believed her father was saved and rushed home to call her grandmother, bringing a basket of food as a thank you. Unexpectedly, when they arrived, the man had quietly left. Oa was very disappointed, sitting on the ground and unwilling to leave for a long time. She believed she would wait for the man to return. Meanwhile, Mimo was sent to prison, where he was punched and kneed in the head upon arrival. Naive Mimo was unaware of his situation, only asking when he could return home. Eventually, he was placed in cell 7. Upon arrival, he faced harsh treatment. The relentless beatings left Mimo terrified, trembling, and curled up on the bed, motionless. The inmates, knowing he had killed a little girl, took advantage of his sleep to force a cloth over his head and dragged him to the toilet to beat him up. A doctor's exam revealed many broken ribs, but it did not lessen the officer's hatred. He specifically instructed not to let Mimo die in prison. He wanted to hang Mimo and put her on the newspaper so everyone would know what he did to his daughter. Oa waited on the mountain for 10 days, but the man never came. In prison, Mimo didn't hold a grudge against his cellmates for the beatings and greeted them cheerfully. The inmates couldn't do anything about this foolish man. As they spent more time together, they seemed to realize this man was different. While exercising, Mimo spoke to pigeons about missing his daughter and grandmother, never harming a praying mantis. Mimo's every move seemed like that of a child who hadn't grown up. Even the inmates couldn't help but doubt if such a person could really be a murderer. He wrote daily letters to his daughter, claiming he was well and had many friends. However, the guards discarded every letter he sent. Mimo often lay by the window, calling for his daughter, after not receiving replies for a long time. The trial day came quickly. Mimo was sentenced to hang for murder. She didn't grasp the situation. All she knew was her grandmother's sadness, which made her cry as well. Oa has missed school for days waiting for the mysterious man. To help her education, a kind teacher took her to see her father in prison, but the officer unexpectedly denied the visit to Mimo. As they argued, Oa quietly slipped away along the prison wall, shouting a secret phrase her father alone could understand. Hearing his daughter's voice, Mimo rushed to the wall, pounding on it, but the thick wall separated them into two worlds. The guards rushed over to take her back to prison. He struggled desperately against their hold, just wanting to say a few more words to his daughter. That night, Yutu got up to use the toilet, only to find his enemy had been waiting for him. At that moment, Mimo appeared and took a stab meant for Yutu. Yutu was surprised, not believing such a man would harm a little girl. To repay Mimo's life-saving act, Yutu's wife brought Oa to visit the next day. An insider took her through a small door, hiding her in a tea cart, and secretly sent her to cell number 7. Oa stepped from behind the curtain. Even Yuyu was touched. She approached Mimo's bed, gently saying, "Dad." Mimo, curled on the bed, finally responded, "Oa, Dad, I'm back." I'm back, darling, darling, the girl told him about the one-eyed giant. This confirmed Yu Yu's suspicions that Maimo was wronged. Even the most vicious criminals showed a gentle side to such a lovely girl. When the girl asked, they lied, saying this was a hospital where everyone confessed their past crimes as if describing illnesses. One quiet old man had accidentally caused his daughter's death. He stared at the marks on the wall every day. Oa immediately saw it was a tree, where his daughter was buried. Learning of the old man's plight, Maimo hurried to comfort him. Seeing this loving pair, she silently vowed to reunite them. Just as Oa was about to leave, the warden got word and rushed to cell number 7, causing chaos. When the warden entered, everyone pretended nothing was amiss. She knew these people wouldn't confess honestly, so she asked the innocent Maimo. Master. The warden was furious and wanted to put them all in solitary for 2 days. Yutu stopped him, telling the warden that everyone in the cell believed Maimo was innocent, and the girl had even found a witness. The warden already knew Maimo was wronged, but who dare defend the commander? He secretly brought Oa to his office, had her explain the one-eyed giant, and kindly sent her home. But when Oa returned, her grandmother had passed away. That night, the warden secretly went to the mountain top, finding a military rifle in the ruins. The witness was a deserter, so he fled when Oa found him. Despite knowing everything, no one dared defend the commander. The warden could only use his power to reunite the father and daughter as much as possible. Oa also told Maimo about her grandmother's death. He was stunned, not knowing what to say, and just ran to a corner to cry. Soon, the deserter was caught and explained the situation to the officer, willing to testify for Maimo. Everyone was delighted to hear this, but the commander also received the news. She called the man to a secluded spot to recount the day's events, but by then the commander had lost all humanity. Even if it was proven that Maimo wasn't the murderer, he still wanted Maimo to be buried with his woman. To avoid delays, the commander ordered the gallows to be prepared quickly. As Maimo was about to be taken to the execution ground, the furious Yu Yu could do nothing. The warden could only watch. They could only allow the mother and daughter to meet once more. Looking at the gallows outside the window, Maimo seemed to realize it was prepared for her. Father-in-law, are you all right? Dad, are you all right? She held her daughter tightly, unwilling to let go. Now that Grandma had become an angel, she didn't know who would take care of her daughter. That night, Maimo wore a new suit and hugged her fellow inmates goodbye, keeping her innocent smile. As the chair fell, a vibrant life was wrongfully taken. The next day, the warden found Oa and gave her a cigarette case left by the old man in the cell. Currently, Maimo peeked out from behind the car. She was alive. The night before her execution, the old man offered to take her place on the gallows. Oa's arrival reminded her of her daughter. Over the years, she had lived in deep regret, hoping her death could ease her guilt towards her daughter. The warden and lieutenant found the plan absurd but were willing to risk it for Maimo. On the execution night, the lieutenant sent people to cause chaos near the prison and removed all guards. The commander, who came to watch the hanging, was also caught in a car accident on the peninsula. The old man changed into the same clothes as Maimo and bid farewell to Yu Yu. Everyone cried. Before leaving, he gave his long-time cigarette case to the warden to pass to Oa. Unaware, Maimo was taken to another cell, and thus he replaced Maimo on the gallows, ending his life calmly and resolutely. The warden masked the old man's disappearance as an escape, and the substitution plan succeeded. Maimo and Oa lived happily. In this world, no one is purely good or bad. We fear not mistakes, but the lack of responsibility. As long as we open our hearts, we can be sure that person will forgive us.